Hey guys, here's my messy 5 GPU rig on which we are going to add the automatic coin switching and the automatic power switching. We got one 3080 Ti, we got one 3080, we got two 3060 Ti's and one 3060. First of all, if you haven't already, go sign up on WhenToMine.io. We have a 7-day free trial if you want to try out the app first. We're going to start by generating the 2 access tokens needed for our app to work. First go to your HiveOS, then click on your name up here and then click Account. Click the Sessions tab and click the Generate New Personal API Token. Add a name, click Save, and then you enter your 2-factor authentication code. Please note that this token is giving us access to your HiveOS account. The WhenToMine app is using this token only to 1. Switching between your already existing flight sheets, and 2. To start and stop your miner. That's the only 2 things that this app does, but you should be aware that this token is giving anyone having access to it full access to your HiveOS. It's not granting anyone access to your wallets or your cryptos or anything like that, but someone with mischievous intentions can use it to reconfigure your rigs. So this token shouldn't be shared without care. WhenToMine is encrypting all tokens and we're handling all your data very carefully. So copy the token, go to WhenToMine.io, log in and click Set Tokens. Add your token to the HiveOS row in this field here and click Commit. Next up is generating the IFTTT token needed to control your Switchbot or your smart plug. Go to IFTTT.com, click on Get Started in the top right corner. Sign up for an account, click through the various questions, they are not important. When it's asking you to start a trial with full access, then you click Not Now, because you can actually use IFTTT for free. Click on any of the recommended applets and then click Explore in the top right menu. Search for webhooks in the search field. Click the webhooks icon and then click on Connect. Now click on Documentation and here is your IFTTT key. You copy it and then you go back to WhenToMine.io, log in and click Set Tokens and paste it into the IFTTT row in this field here. And then you click Commit. So now the WhenToMine app has the access that it needs. Now we're going to set up HiveOS for coin switching by 1. Creating the flight sheets and 2. Setting the overclocking settings. So we're going to create 1 flight sheet for every coin that we want to switch in between. In this demonstration, I want to switch between Ravencoin and Ergo. You can add up till 10 coins for switching. Okay, so here's my rig in HiveOS. We have the 5 GPUs here. I'm first going to create the flight sheet for Ravencoin. I will call it WhenToMine Ravencoin. I will add a coin, I will add my wallet, I will add the pool, and I will choose a miner. And now I want to create the flight sheet for Ergo. I will call it WhenToMine Ergo. I will add the coin, I will add the wallet, I will add the pool, and I will select a miner. So what I want to do now is to run these flight sheets one by one and optimize the overclocking settings for every GPU for the specific coin. When I've done that, I will write down the hash rate and the power consumption that we get, as well as the miner fee of your chosen miner. I will do this process for both coins. The reason for writing down the hash rate, power consumption and the fee is that is the data that our app uses to determine which of these coins that is currently most profitable to mine. So I'm first starting with Ravencoin. I will put in some time to find the optimal overclocking settings for each and every one of these 5 cards. When I've done that, I note down the achieved hash rate as well as the power consumption out of socket. So when I start overclocking, I usually start by looking at hashrate.no. They have an extensive list of which settings to use for which GPU and coin. It's a good place to start, and then I will make some minor tweaks from there just to make the overclocks slightly better. So I'm going to fast forward that part. So I'm going to assume that anyone watching this have prior knowledge on how to set your overclocking settings in HiveOS. So here are the settings that I found gave me the best hash rate and the lowest power consumption. So what I do now is to write down the achieved hash rate, the power consumption and the miner fee. So the hash rate according to HiveOS is 178 megahertz per second. Power consumption according to HiveOS is 995 watts, but out of sockets it's actually 1230 watts. Actually, I'm writing down both the miner fee as well as the pool fee. So the T-Rex miner have a 1% fee for Ravencoin and the pool have a 1% fee as well. So before we move on to the next coin, let's save these overclocking settings that you've just made so that these overclocking settings are applied automatically whenever our rig starts mining Ravencoin. There are 2 ways to do this. The first way, which is the easiest, is making a algorithm-specific overclocking config. To do this, go to the overclocking tab. The default config here is the overclocking settings that you have just set, and that is the overclocking config that is currently active on the rig right now. So we want to save the settings so that they are applied automatically. Simply click on the add button here on the 𝗙𝗃𝗚𝗦 line and click save. That will save and connect the overclocking settings that you have just set to the 𝗙𝗃𝗚 algorithm. Now make sure that the auto select algo is enabled. So what this does is activating the auto applying of the overclocking configs. So now HiveOS will automatically apply these overclocking settings whenever ravenscoin is being mined. The other way to do this is to add your overclocking settings directly into your flight sheet config. This is the solution you will have to use if you want to use different overclocking settings for different coins using the same algorithm. Let's say that you, aside from ravenscoin, also want to mine 𝗏𝗏coin and you want different overclocking settings for these two coins. Then you would have to add the overclocking settings to your flight sheets. To do this, go to your flight sheet and click edit. And down here you can add your overclocking settings in the extra config arguments field. The syntax of these arguments are dependent on which miner software you are using, so please check your miner specific syntax and add your overclocking settings here. If you need help, I suggest that you go to our forum. There are a lot of helpful people there who can instruct you how to add these arguments for your specific miner. Alright, so we have created the flight sheet and we have created and saved the overclocking settings, and we have written down the data necessary for the WhenToMine app. Now let's proceed with the second coin, which is 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Again, I will create a flight sheet and I will call it WhenToMine 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. I will add a wallet, the pool, etc. And then I will run the flight sheet and find the optimal overclocking settings for each and every one of these GPUs. I will fast forward that part. Okay, that's done. And now I write down the achieved hash rate, the power consumption out of socket, the miner fee and the pool fee. The hash rate according to HiveOS is 938 megahertz per second. Power out of socket is 1050 watts. I use the NB miner for mining 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Their fee is 2% and the pool have a pool fee of 1%. Alright, now let's save the overclocking settings. I'm going to the overclocking tab. I click on add on the Autolycos 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and then I click save. Again, I'm making sure that the auto select algo is enabled. Alright, now everything is set up in HiveOS for this rig, and now we're going to create the WhenToMine config. Go to WhenToMine.io, log in and click create rig config up here in the top right corner. First, you'll get three alternatives. Do you want to run coin switching alone? Do you want to run power switching alone? Or do you want to use both of these apps together? So for this rig, I want to 1. Automatically change flight sheet to mine the currently most profitable coin, and 2. I want to power down this rig if the current hourly profitability for all selected coins is below $0.5. And that means that we select the combined coin and power switching app. So the next question here is whether I will be using a Switchbot, a smart plug, or HiveOS only to power on and power off my rig. A Switchbot is a mechanical button presser that you install to press the power button on your rig, just like clicking the power button with your finger. This is the recommended option as it's the most gentle way to turn off your rig. To get a Switchbot, click the link in the description of this video. You can also use a smart plug for switching the power on and off on your rig. It could, however, be considered harmful for the rig to cut the power with the smart plug. But I believe that the risk is pretty low that you would get any complications using one. Most modern smart plugs allows for 16 amperes. For countries like the US with a distribution voltage of only 120 volts, that would set the maximum wattage for that smart plug at 16 times 120, which is 1920 watts. Today, many rigs consume more than that, so for those cases, a Switchbot is the proper solution. If you're going to use a smart plug, we recommend the Tapo TP-Link P115 as it has 3 useful features. 1, it allows for 16 amps, meaning that more power-consuming rigs can use it. Avoid any smart plugs with anything less than 16 amps. 2, it has a default state setup if there is a power outage, so you can set the plug to always be on when the power comes back. 3, it has an interface where you can see the exact power consumption out of socket inside the app. Very useful for us miners. If you don't want to get a Switchbot or a smart plug, there is a third option, which is using only HiveOS. This option doesn't allow the app to power on or power off your rig completely, but only starting and stopping the miner. I will show you all 3 alternatives. Let's start with the smart plug. So if you haven't added the IFTTT and HiveOS token before creating a rig config, you will get an error message at this step. Okay, so here's the interface for the coin and power switching app. First, we have to set a name for this specific config. I'm going to name it WhenToMine config 1. And then we're going to do the last steps to set up the coin switching. If you have added a correct HiveOS token, which was what we did in the beginning of this video, then your different farms and workers should show up in these fields here. So select the farm and the worker ID that we just configured in HiveOS. My worker ID name was 5GPURig. After selecting the worker, you add the coins that we were going to switch in between, which was 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗘. So for these two coins, I will add the corresponding flight sheet that we just created in HiveOS. For 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, that was WhenToMine 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. I will then add the hash rate, the power consumption, and the fee that we wrote down. We had a hash rate of 178 megahertz per second. We had a power consumption of 1295 watts. We had a pool fee of 1%, and we had a miner fee of 1%. Which means that the fee is 2%. Now let's proceed with 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. We named the corresponding flight sheet WhenToMine 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. We had a hash rate of 938 megahertz per second. We had a power consumption of 1050 watts. And we had a total fee of 2%. All right, now we have fully finished the coin switching part. If you want to switch in between more coins, just click this icon here and go create the corresponding flight sheets and overclocking settings in your HiveOS. You can use coin switching for up till 10 coins. Next up, we will add our power cost information that is used both for the coin switching and for the power switching. I'm located in Sweden, so I'm setting the Swedish krona here as currency. I have a variable hour rate together with a fixed cost per kilowatt hour. So the first part of my power cost is fixed on 0.147 Swedish krona per kilowatt hour, not including VAT. The VAT on electricity in Sweden is 25%, so I'm adding that to the price here. The second part of my power cost is a variable hour rate, meaning that the power cost varies between hours. These hour prices are called day ahead prices and are, as the name indicates, set 1 day ahead at around 1 p.m. Nord Pool is a European power exchange and is setting the day ahead prices for the following countries. If you're located in any of these European countries and have the option to get a variable hour rate, that's something I would really recommend now when you get access to this app. So we are looking to add day ahead prices from more exchanges and more countries, so stay tuned for that. And by the way, please go to our forum if you have any other suggestions on what we should add next. So here are the different Nord Pool areas. I live in the Nord Pool area called SE3. If you don't have any variable hour rate, then you just set your fixed rate here. So next up is setting the behavior of the power switching. The first option is making the app turn on your rig whenever the profitability of that hour is above a threshold that you set. The other option is to run the rig the X most profitable hours of that day, which could be relevant if profitability is below 0, but you still want to mine for a few hours every day. I want to run my rig whenever the hourly profitability is above minus 0.1 Swedish krona. Earlier I said minus 0.1 US dollars, but I changed my mind. Now I save the config by clicking the Save App and Timetable button. The config is now saved, and now the app will evaluate the data I have added to the config, and it will tell me which coin is currently most profitable, which apparently is 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. It will also present me with a preliminary timetable of which hours the rig will be running. As the hourly profitability right now for 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is above minus 0.1 Swedish krona, the rig will be running all hours today, given that all data determining the profitability, like the coin value, difficulty, etc., would remain equal. But the profitability will change during the day when the coin value, difficulty, etc. changes. So this means that this timetable is only preliminary and based on the data of this exact moment. But let's say that I choose this other behavior and I only want the rig to run on the 5 hours that is most profitable today. As I have a variable hour rate, this means that I will run the rig on the 5 cheapest power cost hours of the day. So this also gives you some interesting data showing you the power of this app. You will get 23% more 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 for every Swedish krona I spend on electricity. And it also gives you data on running this setup compared to running the rig all 24 hours. So after saving your config, your changes will be applied and active at the start of the next hour. All executions of this app is done at the start of every hour. So the coin switching is already fully set up, and now we have to set up the power switching part of the config to your smart plug. So I have this 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 P115. As I mentioned, this is the recommended choice. You can see your power consumption out of socket. It got this default power state if you get a power outage, and it allows for 16 amps of power, making it suitable for bigger rigs. So we're going to use the IFTTT that we set up in the beginning of this video. We have to create one IFTTT applet for turning on the smart plug and one IFTTT applet for turning off the smart plug. And it's very simple, it's just a few steps. Let's start the IFTTT applet to turn on the device, to turn on the smart plug. First go to the WhenToMine config that you just created and copy the webhook event name for turning on device. Then you go to ifttt.com and click create in the top right corner. Click add on if this, search for webhooks and click on that webhooks icon. Click receive a web request. In this field here, you paste the webhook event name that you copied from the WhenToMine config. Click create trigger, click add on then that. Search for the brand name of the smart plug you are using. I'm using the 𝗙𝗃𝗃, so that's what I'm searching for. I click the 𝗙𝗃𝗃 logo and then I choose the turn on action. The actions here may be slightly different depending on the brand of your smart plug. I'm already logged into my 𝗙𝗃𝗃 account and I will choose the smart plug that this mining rig is connected to. Click create action and then continue. You can add other actions here like sending yourself an email or a text message whenever this applet is triggered. Alright, my smart plug is now connected to turn on the rig whenever the WhenToMine config tells it to. But we also have to create the IFTTT applet to turn off the rig. It's the same steps. So go to your WhenToMine config and copy the webhook event name to turn off device. Go to the IFTTT website and click on create. Click add, search for webhooks. Click receive a web request, paste the webhook event name, click create trigger, click add, search for 𝗙𝗃𝗃 and choose the turn off action. Save it and now you're done. Alright, let's plug in the power cord from this rig into the smart plug and watch WhenToMine work its magic. So the time now is 5 minutes to 7 p.m. The rig is currently powered down. I have changed the settings of the config to mine the 20 most profitable hours of the day. So the timetable looks like this. And the next hour is one of the 20 most profitable hours of the day. And it's marked as on here in the timetable. That means that the smart plug will turn on this rig in 5 minutes. Let's watch that. There you go, the rig is on. So you're all done. You have activated coin and power switching for your rig using a smart plug. Next up, I'm going to show you how to create a config and connect it to a Switchbot instead of a smart plug. Switchbot, as I mentioned, is the recommended choice, again using IFTTT. It's the same process, but it's a different app. Okay, so if you're going to use a Switchbot, we have to create a new WhenToMine config for that. You can't reuse a smart plug config for the Switchbot config. So again, go to WhenToMine and click create rig config in the top right corner. Again, I want the rig to both automatically change flight sheets to mine the currently most profitable coin, but also to power down the rig if the current profitability for all selected coins is below minus 0.1 Swedish krona. That means that we choose the combined coin switching and power switching app. And then we select Switchbot, and here's the interface. It's the same exact fields. So this time I'm going to go through the fields very quickly. If you want to know more details about each and every one of these fields, go watch the previous chapter when I set up the rig config for a smart plug. So again, we set a config name. I will call this WhenToMine config 2. We start by setting up the coin switching, adding the two coins, Raven coin and Ergo. We select their corresponding flight sheets and we add their hash rate, power consumption, miner fee and pool fee. And then we proceed with the power cost. I live in Sweden with the Swedish krona. I have a fixed part of the electricity. I add a VAT and then I set which node pool area I'm located in. I want the same power switching behavior as in the last config. I want to turn on the rig whenever the hourly profitability is above minus 0.1 Swedish krona. I save the app and it gives me the preliminary timetable. And now we connect it to IFTTT. Again, we have to create one IFTTT applet to turn on the rig and one IFTTT applet to turn off the rig. So first I copy the webhook event name to turn on device. I go to IFTTT and I click create. I click add. I search for webhooks. I click receive a web request. I paste the webhook event name, I click create trigger, I click add, I search for Switchbot, and I choose the turn on action. I save it and then I make another applet for turning off the rig. So going back to the WhenToMine config, I copy the webhook event name to turn off device. I go to IFTTT, I click create, I search for webhooks, I choose the receive a web request, I paste the webhook event name, I click create trigger, I click add, I search for Switchbot and I choose the turn off action. Save it and we are done. Now let's set the Switchbot in the right place to click the power button on this rig. On this rig the power button is right here on the motherboard. I hope you can see it, it's pretty small. What I do is I remove the cover of this adhesive tape and just attach it here. From here the mechanical arm of the Switchbot will be able to click the power button of the rig. Now let's watch the Switchbot turn on the rig. The time is now 5 minutes to 8 p.m. The rig is currently powered down. According to the timetable, the 8 p.m. hour is marked for on, meaning that our Switchbot will in just a few minutes start the rig by clicking the power button. Any second now. And there you go, our rig is now up and mining. Last up is creating a config for HiveOS only. As mentioned, this will only allow WhenToMine to stop and start your miner and not turn off your rig completely. Go to WhenToMine, click create rig config, choose the coin and power switching app and select HiveOS only. We got the same exact fields here except that box with the webhook event names. That box is removed. Again, you set up the coin switching data with the 2 coins. You set your power data, you set your preferred behavior of the app. You add your power cost data and you add your preferred behavior of the app. As we are already connected with HiveOS for the coin switching, you actually don't need to do any additional steps here. Just make sure that you have set the correct worker ID here, meaning that you set the worker ID of the rig that you want to control. And that's it. That's the full guide of the WhenToMine app. If you got any issues or feature requests, please visit our forum on whentomine.io. Thanks for watching and keep on mining. Bye.